All right, guys, this video is on 9.11, homework continued. So we're now on question 5. Okay, they've given us these two coordinates. These coordinates are the ends of a diameter. Okay, 8, -1, and 4, -4. Well, we need to come up with the equation of the circle in standard form. To come up with the equation of the circle in standard form, we need to know the center, and we also need to know the radius. Well, if this is the diameter, then the radius is going to be half of this length. Well, we talked about calculating the distance in between two coordinates. We used either the distance formula or we used Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem to find the distance of this diameter. I can form a right triangle. That's 3. This side is 4. Which means 3 squared plus 4 squared equals this unknown squared. That's 9 plus 16 equals x squared. Take the square root of both sides, and it looks like our diameter is 5 units long. 5 units long. If our diameter is 5 units, then our radius is half of that, or 2.5. Okay? Now that we have the radius, the last thing we're looking to find is the center. I'm going to go ahead and erase this scratch work, and then I'll talk you through how to calculate the center. Okay, well, the center of the circle is going to be located directly in the middle of the diameter. Well, we have already learned an equation in geometry to find the middle of the segment. To find the middle of the segment, we use the midpoint formula. Midpoint formula is x plus x divided by 2, comma y plus y divided by 2. So we need to plug in these coordinates. This coordinate was 8, -1. This one was 4, -4. So let's plug these into our equation. I have 8 plus 4 divided by 2, comma, -1 plus -4 divided by 2. That's going to simplify to 12 over 2, which is 6, -5 halves, which you could also represent as a decimal if you wanted to. 6, -2.5. So I have my center, I have my radius. The last thing I need to do is plug this into the standard form of a circle. X minus 6 squared plus y minus a -2.5, so that's going to become addition squared, equals our radius squared. Let me check with my calculator, and it looks like 2.5 squared is 6.25. This is now my final answer for question number 5. Okay, let's now move on to question 6. Question 6, it gives me the equation written like this: -9 equals y squared, negative y squared minus x squared. Okay, well, we don't want to have negatives in front of our y squared and x squared, so we can get rid of that by adding x squared to this side, adding y squared, and I can add 9. So I now have this in a form that's much easier for me to read. I can identify the center as 0, 0, because nothing is being added to x, nothing is being added to y. And my radius is the square root of 9, or 3. The last step is to graph this. Okay, center 0, 0, count up 3, put a dot, left 3, down 3, right 3, and sketch that in. That actually looks pretty nice. I surprised myself. I'm usually not too good with these. Okay, let's go ahead and move to question 7. Okay, it says for the directions in this section, find each equation in standard form, then find the circumference of the even questions. So that's not going to apply to 7. Okay, for 7, it looks like we're just finding the equation in standard form. Well, they're giving us that the center is 0, -4, and the diameter is 2. If the diameter is 2, then the radius is 1. Okay, so our equation is going to be x minus 0 squared, y plus 4 squared equals our radius squared. And if we wanted to simplify this, we could put x squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 1. And that's going to be the final answer for question 7. Moving to question 8. Question 8 says, given the center and another point on the circle. Well, let's think about this visually for just a second. They're saying the center is at 3, 2. I'll label it C for center. And another point on the circle is at 5, 6. Okay, well, the only thing else that I need in order to write the standard form of the equation is the radius. I already have the center, I just need the radius. Well, this right here is the radius. This is r. But I need to calculate the length of r, okay? You can use distance formula or Pythagorean theorem approach. I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem. That's 4, that's 2. So r squared equals 4 squared plus 2 squared. 16 plus 4. R is the square root of 20. Okay? If you wanted to simplify this, you could. I'm going to do it as 4 times 5. The square root of 4 is 2. So you have root 5 left underneath. All right. I know my radius, and I know my center. Let's write my final equation. It's going to be x minus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals that radius squared. So that's 2 root 5 squared. Okay, the mental math for this. Let me explain that. You can distribute the 2 to both terms. That's going to be 2 squared, which is 4. When you square root 5, that is just going to cancel out the square root symbol. So we technically have 4 times 5, which is 20. You could also let your calculator help you. Parentheses 2 root 5, arrow out. Close the parentheses, square it, and we see that it's 20, just like we thought. Okay, this is the final answer for question 8. Now the directions say find the circumference for even questions, so let's go ahead and find the circumference. Circumference is 2 pi r. So in this case, 2 times pi times my radius of 2 root 5. When you simplify this, you're going to get 4 root 5 times pi. And circumference is just length, so that's going to be just units. Okay. And I'll leave my answer in exact form. If you wanted to approximate, you could use your calculator. All right, question number 9. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is put this in standard form. Okay, to do that, I'm going to group my x's, group my y's, and move the constant to the other side. I'll leave a blank. Now I can go to my y's. leave a blank. And I'm going to subtract the 16 to the other side. And I'll leave 2 blanks so I do not forget to add it to both sides of the equation. All right, that's going to be b divided by 2 squared, which that looks like it's 16. This b divided by 2 squared is going to be 9. Okay, I can factor this side. That would be x minus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 9. And that would be my final answer for that question. Okay, on to question 10. It says that the center is 0, 13, and the area equals 25 pi. Well, the directions want us to write this in standard form, so I need to know the radius on top of knowing the center. Well, I know my center, so I'm going to have to use this information to somehow come up with my radius. Area is pi r squared. Well, since I know the area, I'm going to plug that into A. I can divide by pi on both sides, then take the square root of both sides, leaving me with a radius of 5. I can now write my final answer as x, oops, there's nothing being added or subtracted, so that's just going to be x squared plus y minus 13 squared equals our radius squared, which is 25. Giving me my final answer for 10. Since the directions say to find the circumference of the even ones, we can now move on to that step. 2 pi r. Well, my radius is 5, so 2 times pi times 5. So 10 pi units is the final answer for the circumference. All right, I'm going to now move on to question 11. Okay. Question 11 says that the center is at 2, -1, and it's tangent to the y-axis. So let's get a visual of what this is saying. Center 2, -1. I'll label it C. Okay. If this is tangent to my y-axis, that means this is intercepting it in exactly one spot, which implies that my radius, the distance from edge to the center, is 2 units. Okay, now that I know my radius, and now that I know my center, I can now write my equation. X minus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals my radius squared, which is 4. Okay, unfortunately, question number 12, the numbers that are given actually don't make sense because the distance is greater than the diameter. So 12 actually doesn't work, so we're not going to do that one. And that concludes our video.